Have you ever felt a fire rise within you, so intense, so consuming, that it threatened to take control? Have words ever cut so deep that your peace shattered in an instant? In a world that seems designed to provoke, where every glance, every careless remark can feel like a personal attack, how do you remain unmoved? How do you hold on to your peace when everything around you seeks to steal it? But hear me, there is a way. There is a power that allows you to stand firm, unshaken, unbreakable. This is not just philosophy. This is wisdom forged in the fire of trials, tested by those who have walked before us. The ancient Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, faced storms far greater than ours, yet they mastered an inner strength that no insult, no betrayal, no hardship could steal. And today, I'm going to reveal 7 unshakable principles that will not only transform the way you handle emotions, but will set you free. This is not theory. This is a path to power, a path to dominion over your own soul. Pay attention, because one truth, just one, could be the key that changes everything. Let's begin. Willingness is the key to true freedom. Life is not about controlling every outcome, but about surrendering to the divine flow. When you resist, you suffer. When you accept, you rise. This is not weakness. This is strength. It is the power of trust, the power of faith, the power of knowing that all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. Romans 8, verse 28. You were never meant to carry the weight of resistance. When you fight against life's circumstances, you exhaust yourself in battles you were never meant to fight. But when you embrace willingness, when you say, Lord, let your will be done, not mine, you step into a realm of peace that surpasses all understanding. Philippians 4, verse 7. Look at Jesus in Gethsemane. In his humanity, he wrestled with the cup set before him. Yet in divine submission, he declared, not my will, but yours be done. Luke 22, verse 42. That moment of willingness did not lead to defeat. It led to victory over sin and death. Willingness is not about passivity. It is about positioning yourself for divine transformation. Consider your daily struggles. You despise your job, dread your responsibilities, resent the obstacles in your path. But what if you shifted your mindset? What if, instead of resisting, you embraced the moment with gratitude? Washing the dishes is no longer a burden when done with a willing heart. Sitting in traffic is no longer a frustration when seen as a moment of reflection. Even hardship becomes a lesson when received with faith. Marcus Aurelius wrote, accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. But let me take it further. Accept not just fate, but the divine plan written over your life. Stop fighting what God is using to shape you. What you resist persists, but what you embrace transforms you. Epictetus taught, do not seek to have events happen as you want them to, but instead want them to happen as they do, and your life will go well. But the truth is, life does not just happen. Every moment is orchestrated by the hand of God. Your trials, your setbacks, your unexpected detours, they are not accidents. They're assignments. When Paul was imprisoned, he did not resist his chains. He saw them as part of his calling. He wrote letters that would shape Christianity for generations. Letters that would not exist had he been consumed by resistance. What if your current struggle is birthing something greater than you can imagine? What if, instead of cursing your circumstance, you blessed it? Here's the truth. You can live as a victim, bound by frustration and complaints, or you can live as a vessel, open to the divine will. When you make peace with where God has placed you, you gain access to the next level. The promotion is in your willingness. The breakthrough is in your surrender. The joy is in the acceptance of God's perfect plan. Willingness is the posture of champions. It is the attitude of those who rise above, who move in faith, who see beyond the temporary. When you stop saying, I have to do this, and start saying, I get to do this, you shift from burden to blessing, from obligation to opportunity. Ask yourself, what have I been resisting that God is calling me to embrace? What would change if I approached life with an open heart instead of clenched fists? When you say yes to the journey, without resentment, without hesitation, you will find that the very thing you dreaded becomes the path to your greatest transformation. Right now, release the need to control. Release the frustration, the resistance, the bitterness. Say, God, I trust you. Say, Lord, I embrace this moment. Say, I choose willingness. And watch as your life shifts, your heart lightens, and your spirit soars. Stop judging others. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why you feel irritated by someone so quickly? Why does another person's behavior trigger frustration in you? Could it be because you are constantly judging them? Think about it. How many times a day do you internally say, that person is so rude, or they have no idea what they're doing? And here's the real question. Is that judgment serving you, or is it poisoning your spirit? The Bible warns us about judgment. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. Matthew 7 verse 1. Jesus himself made it clear, judging others does not elevate us. It only burdens our own hearts. Yet we still do it. Why? Because we are quick to label people based on our limited perspective. But what if our assumptions are wrong? Imagine you're driving, and someone suddenly cuts you off. Your immediate thought might be, they're so reckless. But have you considered that they might be rushing to the hospital? That they might be overwhelmed with stress? The truth is, we rarely know the full story. And when we judge, we place unnecessary burdens on ourselves. Judgment breeds anger. Anger leads to resentment. And resentment destroys peace. Look at the story of the Pharisees and the woman caught in adultery. John 8 verse 1 to 11. The religious leaders were ready to stone her, convinced of her guilt. But Jesus, full of wisdom and grace, challenged them. Let him who is without sin cast the first stone. And one by one, they walked away. Why? Because none of us are perfect. If God, in his infinite mercy, chooses not to condemn us, who are we to condemn others? Judgment isn't just a thought, it's a weight. It's a chain that keeps us bound to negativity. Consider a colleague who is always late to work. If you tell yourself they're irresponsible, you will only grow more frustrated. But what if they're struggling with a sick child? What if they're battling something you can't see? Shifting your perspective doesn't mean you approve of their actions. It simply means you refuse to be consumed by unnecessary anger. Jesus calls us to love, not to judge. Think about the Good Samaritan, Luke 10 verse 25 to 37. Two religious leaders saw a wounded man on the side of the road and passed him by, perhaps judging him as unworthy of their help. But the Samaritan, the one who had every reason to judge, chose compassion instead. And that act of mercy changed everything. What if we did the same? What if, instead of assuming the worst, we extended grace? Marcus Aurelius once said, "You always have the option of having no opinion." And Proverbs 17 verse 28 echoes this wisdom. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every opinion needs to be formed. You do not have to allow yourself to be weighed down by the need to judge others. Reflect on a moment when you were not at your best. Maybe you were tired. Maybe you were struggling. Did you want others to judge you harshly? Or did you hope for understanding? The same grace you desire is the grace you should extend. Consider this. The next time you're in a restaurant and a server makes a mistake, what will you do? Will you snap at them, thinking they are incompetent? Or will you pause and ask, what if they're going through something difficult? One choice leads to frustration, the other to peace. The decision is yours. To be clear, releasing judgment does not mean tolerating wrongdoing. It means refusing to let negativity control you. You can still recognize right from wrong without letting it steal your joy. Jesus never ignored sin, but he always led with love. When Peter denied him 3 times, Jesus didn't cast him away. He restored him. When Thomas doubted, Jesus didn't shame him. He invited him to believe. So how do we break free from judgment? First, become aware of it. Each time you catch yourself forming a critical thought, ask, is this helpful? Does this reflect God's love? Then, shift your perspective. Instead of assuming the worst, consider what you might not know. Finally, Surrender it to God. Pray, Lord, help me see others through your eyes. Letting go of judgment is not about others, it's about you. It's about freeing your heart from unnecessary burdens. The next time someone frustrates you, take a deep breath and ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Because here's the truth, judgment is a prison. But grace sets you free. And you, my friend, were made to walk in freedom. So I leave you with this. Do you want to carry the weight of judgment? Or do you want to walk in the peace of God? The choice is yours. Let go of control and trust God. Have you ever found yourself frustrated, trying to change the heart of a loved one who refuses to believe? Have you prayed, pleaded, and reasoned, only to be met with resistance? The truth is, you were never meant to carry that burden alone. Only God has the power to transform a heart, but He calls us to partner with Him through prayer and unwavering faith. So let me ask you, are you trying to force a change that only God can bring? Are you holding on to the idea that if you just say the right words, show enough proof, or love them hard enough, they will finally see the truth? My friend, that is not your weight to bear. Your job is not to control their journey. Your job is to remain faithful in prayer and let the Holy Spirit work. Think about this. Jesus Himself never forced anyone to believe. He spoke the truth, He showed love, and He prayed. And that is what we are called to do. When you let go of the need to control the outcome and instead surrender it to God, you unlock a supernatural peace that only He can provide. Picture this. You're in a boat, rowing against a strong current, exhausting yourself trying to fight against the tide. But what if you stopped resisting and allowed the current to guide you? What if you trusted that the one who controls the waves also holds the heart of your loved one in His hands? That is the power of surrender. That is the freedom found in trusting God. So I ask you again, are you spending more time worrying about their salvation than praying for it? Are you letting anxiety steal your peace when God is calling you to trust Him? Remember, no amount of human effort can replace the power of divine intervention. The Bible says in Philippians 4 verse 6, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving let your requests be made known to God." Prayer is your most powerful weapon. It is not passive. It is an act of war against the enemy who blinds the eyes of unbelievers. When you pray, you are engaging in spiritual battle. When you pray, you are standing in the gap for your loved ones. And when you pray, you are unleashing heaven's power over their lives. But here's the real question. Are you praying with faith or are you praying with doubt? Because James 1 verse 6 tells us, "But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind." Do you truly believe that God is able to reach them? Do you trust that He is already working in ways you cannot see? It may not happen overnight. It may not happen the way you expect. But God's timing is perfect. Your prayers are never wasted. Every seed you plant, every word you speak, every moment you intercede, it all matters. The Bible says in Galatians 6 verse 9, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." And here's something even more powerful. Your life is a testimony. The way you love, the way you forgive, the way you live out your faith, it speaks louder than any argument you could ever make. Are you reflecting Christ in a way that draws people to Him? Are you living in such a way that makes them curious about the God you serve? Matthew 5 verse 16 says, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." So today, I challenge you, let go of control. Trust God, pray boldly, and never stop sharing the good news. Not with pressure, not with fear, but with the confidence that God is the one who saves. Speak the truth, love them unconditionally, and trust that the same God who transformed your heart is more than able to transform theirs. Embrace imperfection. Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." By letting such thoughts guide you, you'll discover peace amid the chaos. This isn't about compromising with imperfection. It's the art of living. In life, None of us can avoid moments of frustration or even anger when others don't behave as we expect. But have you ever asked yourself, why do we expect perfection from the world and the people around us? Think about this. Have you ever been disappointed because a colleague didn't complete their task properly, affecting your work? Or felt upset when a friend broke a promise? Or when a family member said something hurtful? Such situations are common. But is it realistic to expect everyone to be flawless? Stoicism teaches that the demand for perfection is an illusion, and that illusion is the root of much suffering. Understanding that imperfection is the essence of the world is the first step to freeing yourself from the negative emotions caused by others. Epictetus reminds us, it is not events that disturb people, it is their judgments concerning them. Anger and frustration don't stem from others' actions, but from how we interpret them. The chaotic, imperfect world doesn't need to change to please you. What needs to change is how you perceive it. Take a specific example. Imagine you prepared meticulously for an important presentation, but at the last minute, a colleague responsible for supporting materials made mistakes or omissions, seemingly ruining your effort. Frustration is natural. You might think, why were they so careless when I tried so hard? But viewed through a stoic lens, you'll see that their mistake is beyond your control. Anger only worsens the situation. Instead of blaming them, you could ask, what can I do now to salvage this? By accepting imperfection, you not only remain calm, but also find solutions more effectively. Stoicism emphasizes focusing on what you can control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, begin each day by telling yourself, today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil. Starting your day with a mindset that imperfection is inevitable prepares you to face challenges with resilience. This isn't pessimism, it's realism, allowing you to navigate difficulties with a steady mind. When you truly accept the world's imperfections, you'll find joy in its flaws. A careless coworker, an inconsiderate friend, or even a rude stranger becomes an opportunity to practice patience and compassion. Ask yourself, have I ever made mistakes? If I want forgiveness from others, why can't I forgive them? This perspective reminds you that everyone, including you, is doing their best. In everyday moments, embracing imperfection can transform your reactions. When someone breaks a promise, instead of anger, remind yourself they are human and might be dealing with unseen struggles. If you feel misunderstood, stay calm and seek clarity rather than jumping to conclusions. Perhaps they didn't intend to hurt you, but simply didn't understand your perspective. And when faced with rudeness or criticism, ask yourself, does this truly harm me, or is it my interpretation making me feel hurt? Accepting imperfection doesn't mean giving up on improving yourself or the world. On the contrary, it liberates you. When you stop demanding that others act as you wish, you free yourself from disappointment and can focus on what truly matters. For example, in relationships, we often expect our partner to understand us perfectly, but the truth is, even those who love you most can't always read your emotions or needs. Instead of blaming them, ask, can I communicate more clearly to foster mutual understanding? This approach not only alleviates dissatisfaction, but also builds empathy. As Seneca wrote, he who is brave is free. Courage to face imperfection is not just a sign of compassion, but a path to inner freedom. Life doesn't have to be perfect for you to find happiness. When you stop expecting perfection from others or the world, you release yourself from the burden of anger. Take responsibility for your emotions. Your feelings belong to you, no one else. No event, no person, no circumstance can dictate how you feel unless you surrender that power. And yet, how often do we let the world control our peace? The world is imperfect. People disappoint. Plans fall apart. Life rarely unfolds the way we expect. But must these external realities steal our joy? No, the battle is not out there. It is within. The true challenge is not changing the world, but mastering the way we respond to it. Imagine this. You're in a long supermarket line. The store is crowded, the air thick with impatience. Suddenly, someone cuts in front of you without an apology, without even acknowledging your presence. Frustration flares up instantly. How dare they? Your peace is threatened, not by the action itself, but by your reaction to it. Now pause. Ask yourself, is this person's rudeness worth my inner calm? I cannot control their behavior, but I can control my response. I can choose peace instead of anger. And when you do this, something remarkable happens. The irritation loses its grip. The offender may never realize their mistake, but they no longer hold power over your emotions. The situation remains the same, but you are free. This is the essence of true strength. Too often, we hand over control of our emotions to others, giving them the keys to our happiness, our peace, our sense of worth. Someone criticizes us, and we crumble. Someone ignores us, and we feel insignificant. But why should another person's actions determine your emotional state? Why should external forces decide whether you walk in peace or turmoil? The ancient Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius declared, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." His wisdom is timeless. The world may be unpredictable, but you are not at its mercy. Your emotions are not the weather, blown about by every passing storm. No, you're the one who commands the winds within. Think about a time when someone spoke harshly to you, criticized you unfairly, or dismissed you without cause. You may have felt anger, hurt, or resentment rise up uncontrollably. But what if in that moment you paused and remembered, asterisk, their words do not define me. Their actions do not shape my worth. I choose my response, asterisk. This shift in perspective is not weakness, it is power. It is the discipline of kings and prophets. It is the mindset of those who refuse to be ruled by anything but the truth within them. But how do we get there? How do we break free from the chains of emotional reactivity? First, practice the power of the pause. When faced with frustration, offense, or disappointment, do not react. Reflect. Ask yourself, does this deserve my peace? A moment of silence before response is the gateway to mastery. Second, train your mind daily. Just as the body grows strong through exercise, the soul becomes resilient through practice. Keep a journal. Write down the moments that challenged you. Identify patterns. Recognize where you give away your power and reclaim it, one decision at a time. And third, ground yourself in truth. The Bible tells us in Proverbs 4 verse 23, asterisk, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Asterisk, your emotions shape your reality. Protect them, nurture them. Do not let fleeting moments dictate the course of your spirit. You were created for dominion, not for bondage. You are not weak. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are the master of your mind, the keeper of your peace. Have you ever let someone else's words steal your peace? Have you ever reacted in a way that, looking back, you wish you hadn't? A coworker openly criticizes you during a meeting. A stranger rudely cuts in line. Someone throws a sharp remark your way, and instantly, your emotions flare up. But here's the real question. Do you want to be controlled by the actions of others? Or do you want to walk in the power of self-mastery? The Bible teaches us a powerful lesson about restraint and wisdom in the face of offense. Look at Jesus. When he stood before Pontius Pilate, falsely accused, mocked, and insulted, did he retaliate? No. The Son of God, who had all the power of heaven at his command, chose silence. When he was reviled, he reviled not again. When he suffered, he threatened not. 1 Peter 2 verse 23. His silence wasn't weakness. It was strength under control. It was authority. Yet, so many of us allow small offenses to rob us of our peace. Why do we give people that much power over us? Why do we allow an impulsive remark to dictate our mood for the entire day? The answer is simple. We haven't learned the power of non-reaction. Proverbs 15 verse 1 tells us, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." Picture this. A coworker criticizes you in front of everyone. Your flesh wants to fight back, to prove them wrong, to protect your pride. But what if you responded with wisdom instead? What if, rather than reacting emotionally, you calmly said, "Thank you for your feedback. I'll consider that." Do you see the shift? You just took control. The enemy's trap was set, but you didn't take the bait. This is how you win battles. Not by fighting every provocation, but by rising above it. Even King David, a warrior anointed by God, understood the power of restraint. When Shimei cursed him, throwing stones and insults his way, David's men were ready to strike. But David stopped them. He chose to walk away. "Let him curse," he said, "for the Lord has told him to." 2 Samuel 16, verse 10. David knew something most of us forget. God is the one who justifies. We don't have to fight every battle. Some battles are meant to be left in God's hands. But let's be real, this isn't easy. When someone disrespects you, everything in your flesh wants to react. That's why the Bible warns us, be slow to anger, for human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. James 1 verse 19 to 20. Anger is a fire, and if we feed it with reaction, it will consume us. So how do we master non-reaction? Here are 3 biblical principles. Pause before responding. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent. Proverbs 17 verse 28. The next time you feel anger rising, stop. Take a deep breath. Pray. Don't let emotions dictate your response. Understand that silence is power. Jesus, standing before Pilate, was silent. Why? Because he knew who he was. You don't need to respond to every insult when you're secure in your identity. Let people say what they want. Their words don't define you. Let God fight for you. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14, verse 14. When someone wrongs you, remember, vengeance belongs to God, not you. Trust Him to handle what you cannot. Think about it. How much energy have you wasted on anger? How many times have you looked back and regretted the way you reacted? What if, instead of reacting, you walked in wisdom and strength? What if you let God handle what's out of your control? The world tells you to fight back, to prove yourself, to defend your pride. But God's way is different. His way is higher. His way leads to peace. And when you master the art of non-reaction, you don't just protect your peace, you walk in divine power. Do you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders? Are there moments when anger or frustration cloud your heart and mind? What if I told you that the path to peace and joy begins within? The first step is to understand that true freedom comes not from external circumstances, but from mastering our inner selves. This is a journey of transformation, one that begins with selflessness and forgiveness. Think about the last time someone hurt you. How did you respond? Did you react in anger, or did you pause and reflect? Life will always present challenges, moments that test our patience, our temper, and our ability to forgive. But what if, instead of reacting hastily, we chose to remain calm? What if we allowed ourselves to understand that every challenge, every frustration, is an opportunity for growth and grace? It is through these moments of self-reflection that our souls become lighter, our hearts more open, and our capacity to love, to empathize, to give greater than ever before. Forgiveness isn't just a moral lesson. It is the key to unlocking a life filled with peace and joy. The act of forgiving doesn't mean we condone wrongdoing. It means we choose not to let resentment rule our hearts. Imagine if every time you were wronged, you asked yourself, what could they be going through? What burden might they be carrying that I cannot see? In doing so, you free yourself from the chains of anger and you open your heart to compassion. Let's take a moment to reflect. How many times have you held on to grudges, allowing anger to eat away at your peace? Now consider how you feel when you forgive, not just in your mind, but deep in your soul. That peace, that joy, is not just a fleeting emotion. It is the mark of a life lived in alignment with something greater than ourselves. And when we forgive, we also give ourselves the gift of freedom. Freedom from bitterness, freedom from pain, and freedom from the past. Now, let me ask you, what if the path to a fulfilling life wasn't about fighting every battle, but about surrendering your need for control and choosing to love. Marcus Aurelius, a great Stoic philosopher, once said, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." Can you feel the power of these words? Every morning is a new opportunity to choose love, to choose peace, to choose selflessness. The world will always present its challenges, but we have the power to decide how we respond. And in this decision lies the foundation of our happiness. Let me share a story with you. A dear friend of mine worked in a high-pressure job where criticism was a constant companion. He was often unfairly judged by his colleagues, and yet, instead of responding with anger, he took a different approach. He asked himself, what might they be going through? Is there something deeper happening that I don't know? His compassion led him to discover that a particularly critical colleague was struggling with financial hardship. Instead of retaliating, my friend chose to listen, to offer support, and to remain calm. The result? Not only did their relationship improve, but the entire atmosphere of the workplace became more harmonious. Can you relate to this story? Perhaps you have a family member or friend who seems to criticize you no matter what you do. Their words sting, don't they? But remember, their criticism may come from their own pain, their own struggles. Understanding this allows you to stop seeing their words as an attack on you, and instead, see them for what they truly are, an expression of their own unresolved hurt. When you understand this, the power of their anger diminishes, and your heart becomes free to respond with love, not resentment. Forgiveness is not about accepting poor behavior. It is about refusing to let it control your emotional state. Anger arises when our expectations are not met. We expect people to behave in certain ways, to act according to our standards. But the reality is, the world is imperfect, and so are the people in it. They carry burdens just like you. And when we understand this, we can release our expectations and, in doing so, release the anger that accompanies them. Have you ever experienced the joy of helping someone without expecting anything in return? How did it feel? I can imagine that it brought you a sense of peace, a deep sense of fulfillment. When we practice forgiveness and selflessness, we experience a joy that transcends material possessions and fleeting pleasures. This is the joy that comes from aligning our lives with a higher purpose. It is a joy that fills us with peace, and a peace that cannot be disturbed by external circumstances. Epictetus, a philosopher from a bygone era, wisely said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Forgiveness is the path to mastering ourselves. It is a choice to be free from the shackles of anger, fear, and resentment. It is a choice to open our hearts, to help others, and to live in a way that brings joy to ourselves and to those around us. And let's not forget the scientific evidence. Studies show that those who regularly practice acts of kindness and selflessness report higher levels of happiness. Stoicism understood this truth long ago. Forgiveness and selflessness are not just moral virtues. They're the keys to a richer, more meaningful life. You are called to a higher purpose, a purpose that requires you to look beyond your own feelings, beyond your own immediate reactions. The truth is this: every person you meet carries a story, a history, a struggle that you may never see. Can you see their world through their eyes? Can you feel the weight they carry in their hearts? This is the first step toward true understanding, and it is within your power to choose this path of compassion. We are all flawed, but we are all deserving of grace. When was the last time you helped someone without asking for anything in return? Perhaps it was a moment that seemed small at the time, but in hindsight, you realize it was a profound act of kindness. How did it feel? The peace that washes over you, the warmth in your heart. This is what it means to give freely, without expectation. It is through these moments that forgiveness becomes real. It is not just an idea. It is a way of living, a practice to be woven into the very fabric of our days. Forgiveness does not need to be complex. It doesn't require grand gestures or an understanding of every circumstance. Often, it's as simple as being patient with someone's carelessness. When you stop trying to control what's beyond your reach When you release your grip on anger and resentment, you open yourself to a higher state of being. You realize that kindness is not something to be demanded, but something to be given. Instead of holding on to bitterness, you begin to cherish the opportunity to be compassionate. You choose to forgive, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve the peace that comes with letting go. As Seneca wisely said, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. Look around you. Wherever life places you, there's a chance to extend grace, to soften your heart, and to uplift someone who may need it more than you know. But forgiveness isn't just for the other person. It's for you too. When you release the weight of anger and judgment, you free your own soul. You begin to build a life of peace, not just for those around you, but for yourself as well. And that is the foundation of a life well lived. Forgiveness is not merely an action. It is the key to living freely. It is the doorway to peace, to joy, and to true self-mastery. When we choose forgiveness, we choose to transcend the bitterness and pain of the past. We align ourselves with a higher purpose. We allow ourselves to be transformed. We have just uncovered the principles that lead to inner peace, practices that will guide you through every storm, every conflict, every challenge. These are not lofty ideals. They're the guiding lights that will lead you toward true freedom. By accepting life as it is, by releasing judgment, by relinquishing control over the uncontrollable, you step into a life of power and peace. Each act of kindness, each moment of forgiveness, brings you closer to the truth of who you really are. So now, I urge you to take action. If you felt the weight of anger or resentment, it's time to release it. Choose forgiveness today, for yourself, for others. Practice kindness, even when it's hard. Let go of the judgment that binds you, and step into the freedom that forgiveness offers. The world needs you, your light, your compassion, your ability to forgive. Don't wait another moment to be the change this world so desperately needs. If this message has touched your heart, take a moment to like this video. Share it with someone who may need to hear it today. And don't forget to subscribe, so we can continue this journey of transformation together. Thank you for being here. Let forgiveness begin, and let your light shine.